mine, he has a home by LAX, so should qualify for permits.
Cool.
Yeah.
Can you see my screen, John?
Yeah, I can see your presentation.
Okay. I'll give people a couple minutes here to jump on, and then I'll get into everything. If you got any questions at all, feel free to use the chat. And again, I think it'll probably be pretty short today, about 15-20 minutes of everything, and then I'll post the recording to the meetup page. And if you have any questions at all at the end, you can feel free to reach out to me.
All right, sounds good. Looking forward to it.
Hey guys, what's happening?
Hey, how are you?
Shoot.
Real good, real good. Roll Tide.
Mr. Alabama himself. Is
Yes,
that Dave Bynum?
Yes, it is.
Can you see my video here? I'm not sure, but
Yeah, I can see Airbnb, VRBO, Trip Saver, the whole deal. TripAdvisor. Sorry about that. Put my glasses on.
Hey Dave, it's John
What's up, buddy?
Hey, I had no idea you'd be on this call. I'm just joining in to listen.
Yes, I always. You know what? I never claim to know it all.
Cool. Well, what I'll do is I'll jump into things then, and if you guys have any questions or need anything here at the end, well, it probably won't take too long. I'll just run through it. I'm just going to go through a little bit of everything. So about 20 years ago or so now, it's been, I formed the home company. We're a real estate brokerage. We focus on value-added opportunities. We've been doing short-term rentals in one way, shape, or form, mainly Airbnb, since about 2012. We help a lot of our clients to reposition their properties that they currently have as either rentals or properties they purchased in the past as short-term rentals, and buy, fix, and flip them and manage them when necessary as well. So one thing that I find that people really don't understand is real estate appraisals. Most people think when you get a real estate appraisal, there's only one way that an appraiser can appraise a property. They don't understand that there's 3 separate ways that somebody can appraise a property. The one that's used in residential real estate about 99% of the time is the sales comparable approach, which is just, your neighbor has the same floor plan as yours, or the same square footage and the same amenities, and his sold for $500,000, which makes yours worth about $500,000. Another appraisal approach that appraisers can use is the replacement cost approach, which basically says the land that your property sits on is worth $100,000, and it's going to cost about $300,000 to rebuild the house. Therefore, your property is worth $400,000 with the property and the house that are on it right now. The third one that is used more in commercial property appraisals more than anything else, but can be used in residential as well, it just isn't very often, is the income approach. And what the income approach says is, I've got an apartment building that's sitting next to another apartment building, and one's grossing $150,000 a year, and the other one's grossing $300,000 a year. The income approach would say that the $300,000 a year income would be about twice as much as or would be worth twice as much as the $150,000, even if they're the same exact building, the same exact size, the same exact units, everything else about it. So that income approach is kind of what we're going to talk about when it comes to Airbnb, because the income that you're going to get from these is going to be much, much higher than your typical long-term lease. So when we talk about valuations, you've got your monthly leases, and then you've got your short-term rental income. And just to give you a quick example, like a typical 12-month lease, nice property, $4,000 a month, is going to have about a 5% vacancy allowance and 5% repair budget, and then your management fee is going to be somewhere between 7 and 10%. So the average revenue that you're going to get is about 40 grand. Whereas if you've got an Airbnb that's renting for about $300 a night, it's booked about 75% of the time, and even if you're paying management on top of that of about 20%, you're going to be getting about $64,000, $65,000. So about 60% higher than the typical home that was on a long-term lease basis. One of the things that Airbnb has been really good about doing now is that they've created their own, I guess, affiliates when it comes to refinancing and when it comes to mortgages. They've really reached out to, I guess, 4 lenders, Quicken Loans, Citizens Bank, Better Mortgage, and Guild Mortgage, and now have a really good refinance program where if you've got 2 years worth of short-term rental income that you've documented, and you can actually go into Airbnb's site and the hosting dashboard and download the actual revenue numbers that you have, they'll use that as far as the refinance goes. And you can obviously get a much better or much higher value on your property based off of the short-term rental income that you're pulling in rather than the long-term rental revenue. I posted the link up there on the top, which is the page to the Airbnb site. But I think if you Google on Airbnb refinance, it comes up pretty easily, and you can find all the information. I just took one little paragraph. There's probably about 2 or 3 pages worth of information about their affiliation with mortgage lenders and what it is that they do and how it is that you can refinance your current property if you have an Airbnb. So one of the properties that we have right now that I'm working on is a property in North Park, San Diego. It's going to gross probably about $125,000 this year. We're going to actually put it on the market in August. And the reason why August is such a great time is that July by far is the highest revenue month of the year in San Diego and I think most places in California. So just in July right now, I think the bookings alone are about $21,000. Obviously with the coronavirus out there, it may change dramatically from now
gosh.
and then, but hopefully it doesn't, eat into too much between now and then. But I mean, it's amazing to think that you can make, this is a property that when we purchased it, the owner was getting about $3,200 a month from their long-term lease, and we bought it at market value. We turned it into a short-term rental, and now we're getting close to $10,000, $11,000 a month when it comes to our annual rental income. So there's a lot of sites out there that allow you to get information, and they've popped up since it's come since the short-term rental game's become a lot more prevalent. Laptop Landlord I find is really great, and LearnBnB for people that are new to it. They need a little help here and there. Guesty is a great resource for people that own more than one Airbnb or more than one short-term rental, or short-term rental property managers that have upwards of 100 properties that they're managing. And then Fiverr for doing the things that you really don't want to do. You can pay somebody $5 or $10 and they can go out there and take care of a lot of the things that you would need for a short-term rental, anywhere from making your pictures look good or your video to writing copy for your property. So next steps, we always go through, I've been doing this for about 6 or 7 years now. We review people's current Airbnbs, see where there's ways that you can increase your revenue and thus increase the value of the property. We value properties too based on currently what's going on the rental market, what properties are worth in the neighborhood, and what a short-term rental would look like, especially if you're maxing out the revenue. If you're not currently on Airbnb or you're not currently a host, shoot me an email and I can send you our affiliate link so that when you do book or when you do host, you get a pretty sizable amount of money at least refunded to you and to get signed up. So that's pretty much it for the presentation. I don't like to go too long, 10, 15 minutes on that. But if you guys have questions about anything, feel free to let me know.
Yeah, Christopher, could you send me that link?
Yeah, what I'll do is I'll post this on the Meetup site, and then if you want to send me your email or just let me know, I'll also send you the links and everything that I've got. You can just email it to kpeter@thehomeco.com there at the bottom, and I'll shoot you what we've got there. You currently have a couple of Airbnbs that you're working on right now?
I do, yes.
Okay. Cool. Did all that stuff make sense that I just went through?
Yeah, I did not know about the lenders, and that's really good news.
Mhm.
When they do the cost approach, are they, how accurate? Because I've got properties that are doing $200,000-$300,000 a year in income.
Mhm.
What valuation do they take into consideration? Let's say, like the home I'm in right now, it does about 275 a year,
Uh-huh.
and it's probably appraised at 1.2. But if I did a long-term rental on it, it would probably be about $7,000 a month. So how did they justify? That's a big swing. It's a big pivot in the income. How do they justify the valuation? Is it with the cost approach? Is it 2 million, 2.5 million? How do they do that?
That's a great question. So typically when you're looking at income properties, what most lenders are going to use is a debt coverage ratio. And that debt coverage ratio is going to be a little bit different from lender to lender, but it's usually somewhere between 1.2 to 1.3. And what that means is that the payment that you have each month, your all-in payment, your PITI, is going to need to be, or your rental income is going to need to be about 120% to 130% of that PITI number. So if you look at it like, you say you're getting $200,000 a year, and that's your net revenue that you're bringing in short term, well, then your payment's going to need to be somewhere around 150-ish. So I'm not sure what what those numbers are going to look like, but that's probably going to be about 2.5 million as far as the number would go. I would think is what they would value it at based on the debt coverage ratio.
So,
But like you said, if it's a $7,000 lease and you're only bringing in 84,000 a year, or even less than that, after all the other expenses, you're talking $1.5 million. So you've got $1 million difference there as far as property valuation.
let me ask you, would they refinance out on these properties at that valuation?
Yeah, you can cash out. Each
Really?
lender has, again, a little bit different overlays that they use, but yeah, you can definitely cash out on most of these things as long as you've got 2 years worth of short-term rental income and you have that on your tax returns. That's the other tricky thing, is that most entrepreneurs want to write down as much as they possibly can so they don't have to pay $60,000 or $80,000 worth of income tax on that every year. But as long as you can show the significant amount that you're bringing in, they'll lend off of it, and you can usually get your property valued at whatever the like I said, the debt coverage ratio. But it's going to be almost double. I mean, if you're talking the difference between that lease, which would be maybe $1.5 million, and the short-term income, which is going to be 2.5, you've got a sizable difference, $1 million difference there as far as how much you can cash out.
Gotcha. So some of the strategy I'm seeing right off the bat is the people who are trying to sell their short-term rentals.
Yeah, what we do is we typically do a longer term type of a flip. So what we look at is a 2-year, we get into a property and you've got a kind of that arbitrage period where you can buy a property at market value, or what somebody believes is market value, leasing it out for the last 10 years and getting X amount of income. And we look at it like, just like you do. If you're making $7,000 a month from a rental property, but if you short term it, you're making $18,000 a month. Well, you just basically doubled the value of that property. And as long as you can show that, demonstrate it for 2 years, you can either refinance or you can sell it to somebody else who would want to get that income.
Okay, so the magic number is 2 years, because some of these properties have only been operating as a short-term rental for maybe a year to 18 months.
Mm-hmm.
So you need 2 years worth of income.
Most investors are going to want to see 2 years. Yeah, I mean, you might be able to get away with a year, 18 months, but again, it's going to go off that debt coverage, and the longer that you can prove that that's the actual number, the better.
Okay. Are they looking on your FICO score as well, or are they just going off income?
On these ones, mainly they're looking at just the income because they're income properties. So it really doesn't matter what your well, it always matters what your FICO score is because they want to make sure that you're going to be good for the payment, but it's not as a determining factor as if you were buying a primary residence.
Perfect. Do you have any preferred lender that you would recommend?
I've used Guild Mortgage in the past, and they've been pretty good. They're very easy to deal with and are pretty straightforward. I think it always just depends on the loan officer that you get or the loan officer that you have a relationship with. You know, all the lenders are going to be pretty typical and they're going to have similar packages. It's just you want to get somebody who's going to go to work for you and take care of all the, you know, the paperwork so that you don't have to have everything picked apart.
Okay. What are you looking to get out of this? Are you looking to have us buy properties through you, manage our properties? What are you looking for?
Yeah, usually I love networking with people that are like-minded, that have, you know, properties all throughout California, and we help people buy more properties when they're looking for things. We help people sell their current ones and do it a little creatively. We worked on a couple of seller finance deals where the seller actually made out much better based on the fact that they were able to sell their property. Buyer bought it with no money down, and you know, they both got what they wanted at the end of the day. So you know, we're always looking for creative solutions for real estate.
Okay, perfect.
Hey, Christian, I got one quick question for you.
Sure.
So I was connecting with the owner of a house in Newport through a realtor, and the information that she got from the owner was that she was producing a real high amount of income, about like $185,000 in 5 months on a 4-bedroom, 2,500 square foot. The only thing is, though, she was getting people she knew in there. Our lender is looking for people that have a system that's working off the platforms, or because it seems like that's her skill in getting guests to stay at that high income rate.
Sure.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it doesn't matter what the platform is, or even if it's direct, you know, if it's consumer to consumer, as long as it's being documented somewhere. So as long as you've got receipts, you know, bank statements, something showing like, okay, if you made $185,000 in 5 months, you know, they're going to want to see those $30,000 deposits coming from somewhere. And usually, like I said, they're going to want to see a 2-year paper trail. You know, people can fudge anything for, you know, 6 months to a year, but when it comes down to it, if you're doing it for 2 years and you're actually paying taxes, that's when the lenders, you know, understand that, yeah, this is a business and you are doing what you say you're doing, and you're a good credit risk. And thing. So, you know, if you, like with anything, if you can show that you can pay them back, they're happy to give you money. And you know, the documentation that you provide is going to be the big thing. Some lenders go off of bank statements, and you know, that's all they need. Other lenders are going to want to pull everything that you've done in the last, you know, 2 or 3 years, and then, you know, tax returns and income statements and profits and losses and everything else. So, you know, you're just going to want to deal with a lender that you feel comfortable with, that you know is going to, you know, go to bat for you and do a good job, because, you know, you don't want to get into the process and, you know, 4 months later find out that they're not gonna finance it. But you know, most of these are pretty. You know, it's great that I didn't even know that Airbnb had the relationships until I went out there and I Googled it yesterday. But so you've got 4 lenders at least that are listed on their website that you can go to and say, hey, here's what I'm doing.
Wow.
I know that you're an Airbnb affiliate, and they're gonna say, great, yeah, here's our application and here's our criteria, and once we get this, you know, you get funded in 10-15 days.
Right. Wow. Yeah. I mean, I've got some, that's, you know, interesting to know. I've got some investors maybe interested eventually in that property, but interested in talking to her about owner financing. So then if that could get locked in, then if we wanted to go find a more, a better interest rate, we could go through Airbnb with Freddie Mac possibly.
Yep. Definitely.
That's good. Wow. Yeah.
Well, I appreciate everybody being on this. Again, I apologize, I have to cut a little bit short today, but I'll post this on the Meetup website. And if you've got any questions at all, feel free to shoot me an email, and I'm happy to get together with you offline and kind of network with whatever kind of questions you've got regarding either buying, selling, or running an Airbnb.
Perfect. Thanks, Christian.
You're welcome.
Perfect. Thanks, Christian.